Okay. All right, folks, just give me a moment. I just need to correct something here. Okay, I think I got that corrected. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Law, and we're going to begin with our state expedited accusation calendar. This is a list of cases in which individuals were recently arrested and booked, charged with certain misdemeanor offenses. Upon being arrested and booked in, the Solicitor General has formally accused the defendant of one or more misdemeanor charges. Hence, due to the accusation, the case is now with the State Court of Fulton County. And this would be the defendant's initial appearance before a judicial officer. If you are a defendant charged with such an offense or offenses, please remember that you have a constitutional right to remain silent. Anything you choose to discuss about your case during the course of these proceedings, your statements can and will be used against you. These proceedings are being recorded as well as live streamed. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one of our attorneys from the Public Defense Council or the Conflict Defense Council list will be representing you. Okay, our reset date, if the case does need a preliminary matter, will be March 7th, 2023 at 9 a.m. in courtroom G33. Most of these calendars are being handled via Zoom or virtually. So if you do have a reset date, I would recommend that you double check with the clerk's office as to whether the hearing is actually being held in G33 or whether it's going to be held exclusively via Zoom. Courtrooms are sometimes being double booked for other proceedings, so it's best to check if you have a court date. All right. And I'm going to begin with courtroom 2. Who do we have?
Good afternoon, Judge Law. This is going to be position number 1. They also have a private attorney.
Thank you. All right. This is Sadiq Araya, accused of theft by shoplifting on February 21st, 2023. Accusation number 23 CR 0010111Y. Mr. Araya, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Tom Nagel. Mr. Toussaint, any prior arrests, please? First, okay. And Mr. Nagel, does your client live with a family or have his own residence?
Your Honor, my client is a student at Boston University. He works there.
Oh, I lost you, Mr. Nagel. Okay, let me just confirm. Ms. Lewis, can you see and hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
I can see you and hear you.
Okay, I think Mr. Nagel's broadband may have lapsed. Okay, Ms. Lewis, why don't you give me your recommendation first?
Yes, Your Honor. The state is recommending $1,000 surety bond through the jail, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. And just to put a couple facts on the record, Mr. Arai was caught shoplifting at the racetrack located at 1180 Virginia Avenue. The merchandise he stole totaled about $114. And because this is his first arrest, the state is recommending a signature bond through the jail.
All right.
I'm sorry if I said surety bond earlier, excuse me.
All right. Mr. Nagel has
Sign off. He's coming back on, Judge.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. All right. I'm going to let Mr. Nagel know that I'm going to grant the state's request for $1,000 signature bond through the jail. Mr. Ray, you can sign up for your bond, but you're going to have to stay away from the racetrack gas station at 1180 Virginia Avenue in Hapeville, Georgia. Right. You need to maintain a current address, phone number, and email with the court at all times. Yes, and when you are summoned to court, whether it's via Zoom or in person, you would need to appear. Failure to appear will result in arrest warrant And these arrest warrants tend to go nationwide. So we know even in Massachusetts. All right. When Mr. Nagel reappears, we will let him know. Thank you. Next case, Francois.
It's gonna be courtroom number 3, Judge.
Okay, who do we have in courtroom number 3?
Position 2.
All right. This is Sierra Brooks, accused of 10 separate charges. And 5 of them are theft of mislaid or lost property. The other 5 are driving while license suspended or revoked, failure to obey traffic signs, signals, and markings, failure to maintain lane or improper lane change, fleeing or attempting to elude a police officer, and fleeing or, failure to obey traffic signs, signals, and markings. Mr. Nagel, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, Your Honor. My
Don't worry
computer went
about
off.
putting on the video that might interrupt, but your client just received a $1,000 signature bond through the jail. His next court date will be further notice. He must maintain a current address with us at all times. And we will send him notice of his next court date. If you can go ahead and file an entry of appearance. He's also to stay away from the racetrack at Virginia Avenue in Hapeville.
Not a problem, Judge. I did file an entry with magistrate court. I can file it again if for some reason they didn't get it.
All right, yeah. Please do. You can reach out to Ms. Katrina Lewis at the state court clerk's office.
Yeah, Mr. Nagel, you need to file it underneath the state accusation number.
23 CR 0010111.
Yeah, for state court. You could
Okay.
email it to me, or you could do it e-file, whatever your preference is.
Okay, I will get it to you. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, going
Thank
back
you.
to Sierra Brooks case, her case number is 23 CR 0010238. Mr. Howard, I believe this is her first arrest in Georgia?
Correct.
Okay. Miss Lewis, I've already read the warrants. I understand this was quite a trip. And so what is the state's recommendation on these 10 charges?
Yes, Your Honor. First, I'd like to put some of the facts on the record. This incident occurred February 21st at the intersection of Peachtree Road and Bennett Street. Officers were traveling down Peachtree Road when he noticed Ms. Brooks turn left onto Peachtree Road off of Bennett Street and run the red light. Officer then activated his lights and sirens to signal Ms. Brooks to stop. The vehicle, however, turned left on Colonial Homes Drive and fled at a high rate of speed, disregarding a stop sign and failing to maintain lane, and continued driving at a fast rate through a residential area. The officer canvassed the area and found Ms. Brooks walking on the side of 2031 Golfview Drive, where he then detained her. Upon search of Brooks' vehicle, the officer found numerous pieces of mail with different people's names and addresses on it. Brooks stated that the mail in her vehicle had all came from an address at 1040 Huff Road, which is where she used to reside. And most of the mail that was open were bank documents, including checks. Your Honor, for this reason, the state is recommending a $5,500 surety bond. That is $500 on count 1, $500 on count 2, $500 on count 3, $1,000 on count 4, and then $500 for the remaining counts to total $5,500. No alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and to stay away from the 1000 block of Huff Road. Nothing further.
Thank you. Mr. Trejo?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Good to see
Good
you.
afternoon. Thank you.
Your Honor, if the court is not inclined to grant a signature bond for my client, I would ask that the bond be reduced. My client is gainfully employed. She's currently a freshman at Savannah College of Art and Design here in the Atlanta campus. So she graduated high school. She's in her first year there and has plans to graduate and move on with her life and start a career.
Okay.
She's from the area. She grew up here. She currently lives here. She lives with family. So given the fact that she has ties to the community and it's her first arrest, we do ask for a signature bond if possible.
So I'm concerned that some of the charges for the theft of lost or mislaid property with the dollar value on those alleged items, do we still keep it as a misdemeanor charge? Ms. Lewis?
Your Honor, we are going to refer that up to the DA's office to see if they will accept it as a felony.
Okay.
On the check, I know which one you're referring to, on the check with the Emotions LLC.
All right, thank you. On the driving while license suspended, it's going to be 3,000. The remaining charges are going to be 1,000 each. So that's 9, 10, 11, 12. The total bond is $12,000. It's a signature bond through pretrial services. Ms. Brooks will report to pretrial once a month. She is not to operate any motor vehicle unless she's got a valid driver's license, adequate insurance, and proper registration. She is to update the court with her current address, phone number, and email. And if she gets arrested again for anything else from this point onwards, arrested for anything else, including any driving infractions, this $12,000 bond will be converted to a cash bond only.
Great. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the state also recommended stay away from the 1,000 block. That's where a lot of the mail that she took was from.
The Huff Road location?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, what was that address again?
It's the entire block, but the actual address is 1040 Huff Road, which is an apartment complex.
Okay, so she's to stay 500 yards away from 1040 Huff Road in Atlanta, Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Position 11, Waters.
Eleven, okay. This is State versus Alante Waters, 23 CR 001022F. Mr. Waters has been accused of simple battery, domestic violence, and one separate count of simple battery from a February 21st, 2023 incident. Mr. Waters, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Trejo. And Mr. Toussaint, just identify the adult arrest, please.
You got an open ag assault, possession of knife or firearm during the commission. 22 CP 211517.
All right.
Open battery DV in state court. 21 CR 001 494F.
All right, thank you. Miss, is it, oh gosh, is it Miss Bickerstaff or?
Yes, it's Bickerstaff.
Oh, okay, yes, Miss Bickerstaff, what's the state's recommendation? I've read the warrants already.
Yes, Your Honor. So we are recommending a $10,000 surety bond, $5,000 for the family violence simple battery, and $5,000 for the simple battery. And Your Honor, just to let the record reflect, this incident occurred yesterday evening, February 21st, 2023 at 679 Smith Street, Southwest Atlanta, against the victim, Lakeisha Ann Waters. Lakeisha is spelled L-U-K.
Oh, I have that. I believe that's a parent, right?
Yes, Lakeisha Waters is the mother of the defendant. But Your Honor, as you know, officers arrived to this location to handle a dispute between the defendant and his mother, Miss Waters. And the defendant knocked Miss Waters to the ground and began grabbing at her neck. And Miss Waters, during this dispute, Miss Waters called out for her other son, Mr. Tiante Waters, to rescue her from the defendant. And when he was able to arrive, he was able to get the defendant off of their mother. However, the defendant then began attacking his brother. And so Ms. Waters did inform our victim advocate that the defendant has been diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, and that she is indeed afraid when he has an episode, and she fears how bad those episodes could get. And she also let us know that she is on dialysis 3 times a week, and she just doesn't have the energy nor the strength to defend herself against the defendant when he has one of these mental health episodes, Your Honor. And it's also important to note that he has currently an open case for simple assault against his mother.
Yes, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of the other case, yes. So it's $10,000 surety bond, no contact with Ms. Waters, and stay away from the location?
Yes, Your Honor. And we're also asking for a stay away from his brother, Tiante Waters, as well, and to stay away from the address 679 Smith Street. And we're also asking for no alcohol, drugs, or weapons.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bigstaff. Mr. Trejo, yes, I'm familiar with the warrants in this case. I'm familiar with the open case involving the same victim, and I'm also familiar with, unfortunately, he does have a felony matter as well.
Yes, ma'am. It's actually my colleague, Mr. Judd, who spoke to him. So he'll be the one who's handling. I see that he's on the Zoom as well.
He is, all right, beg your pardon. Mr. Judd?
No
Yes.
problem.
What's, in your conversations, what's the bond recommendation, or is there an evaluation that needs to take place? Because I haven't seen one requested in either of the cases.
Yes, Your Honor. Can we do a breakout for that reason?
Right. Ms. Lewis, can you put me, Ms. Bickerstaff, Mr. Judd, and Mr. Trejo, and Ms. Falk, yes, in a breakout, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Waters, after conferring with your attorney, Mr. Judd, and speaking with him and with the prosecutor, your bond's going to be set at $10,000 surety bond. It's going to be $5,000 on each count. You are to have no further contact with Tiante Waters, no further contact with Lakeisha Ann Waters, and you're not to return to 679 Smith Street in Atlanta, Georgia. No illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. You have to be compliant with any treatment or medication which has been prescribed for you. And we're going to reset all 3 open cases to the, it was March 7th, right, Ms. Lewis?
Judge.
All right, thank you.
You got Melissa.
Ms. Grace, sorry. All 3 cases are going to be reset to March 7th, 2023 at 9 a.m., which means that one of the cases will be removed from the ORCA March 3rd calendar. And this would be 21 CR 001494F and 21 CR 001066F, as well as the current one. Thank you. Courtroom 3, I believe that is that Miss Wallace?
No, this position number 3.
3, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Miss Mary Conley. Miss Mary Conley's case number is 23 CR 001010A, accused of DUI, driving under the influence of alcohol, less safe. And this is from a February 20th, 2023 incident. Ms. Conley, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Trejo. Is it Mr. Trejo?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Howard, I believe, has informed me this is a first arrest, so we can move on to the bond recommendation. Ms. Lewis, yes, I've read the warrant. If you would just like to articulate how the bond is, why you're recommending the bond in terms of the relevant factors, rather than going through the whole incident.
Yes, ma'am. Just a few facts, and then that's why we give you the recommendation. So officers observed Ms. Conley nearly strike an off-duty unmarked police car. When he finally pulled her over, he smelled a strong smell of alcohol emitting from her mouth. He asked her to exit the vehicle and perform some field sobriety tests, which she could not complete. She was visibly unsteady and swaying back and forth. And she was unable to demonstrate the walk and turn as well as the one leg stand within the required time frame for that testing, Your Honor. For this reason, the state is recommending a $3,000 surety bond, no driving, and no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while out on bond. Nothing further.
Mr. Trejo?
Yes, Your Honor. We would ask for a signature bond given the fact that this is my client's first offense. I believe the state also mentioned no driving while she's on pretrial release. We would ask that. I don't think we would have any issues with the no alcohol provision, but I do find that the no driving provision would be a bit unduly restrictive, as my client is gainfully employed. She's not from the state of Georgia, but she does reside here. She's resided here for 2 years, has always been employed. She has a bachelor's degree, and she lives with her partner here. So she is in stable condition, Your Honor. And we would just ask that we would have a signature bond and that we would lift that condition.
All right. Bond is set at $2,000. It is a surety bond. Further notice to March 7, 2023, unless she makes bond. No driving unless permitted by the Department of Driver Services under the ALS provisions. No alcohol. And we will see her on March 7th unless she bonds out. Her address, her phone number, and her email must be current with the court at all times. If she changes any of those, she needs to update the court with in writing, excuse me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Your Honor.
Position 8, Rodriguez.
All right, this is Alan Thomas Rodriguez, case number 23 CR 001024C. Mr. Rodriguez has been charged in this particular case with 11 counts under 40-6-186, I believe, with I'm not certain where that was in the statute, but this is the Solicitor General's charge: promotion or organization of exhibition of illegal drag racing. So apparently this charges all stem from October 16, 2022. And okay, so these are the 11 charges. And Mr. Rodriguez, you have been advised of your right to remain silent. And Mr. Trejo, is he represented by public defendants?
So that'll be Mr. Judd's case, Your Honor.
All right. And Mr. Judd, does your client qualify for continued representation of the public defender's office?
Your Honor, Mr. Rodriguez doesn't qualify for further representation, but we will be representing him today for the purposes of bond.
All right. So after today, Mr. Rodriguez will have to retain his own private counsel, which is highly recommended, or he can waive his right to counsel and choose to represent himself. So presently he's represented by Mr. Judd. So Mr. Howard, I believe you mentioned 3 cycles. Could you elaborate?
2020 theft by receiving dismissed. 2022 false statements and writings dismissed.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Campbell, what's the recommendation for bond?
Yes, Your Honor. And just for clarity for the court, the code section is actually 16-11-43.1, which is the Georgia code. So it's not the solicitor's code section. It is from the state of Georgia. And
I was just reading off the statutes from the warrant. It was under your traffic code section, chapter 40.
Okay.
Am I wrong? Was I reading it wrong?
Well,
40-6-186 for drag racing. But go ahead. I do believe that you all are going under the theory that he organized folks to allegedly participate in a mass drag racing, or I don't know. Y'all tell me what's this case about?
yes, Your Honor. So the facts as alleged are that on the date of October 16th, between the hours of 12:20 in the morning and 4:35 in the morning, this defendant, he collaborated with several other people to orchestrate several drag racing events throughout the city in Atlanta. And at these different drag racing events, there were vehicles that were performing donuts and burnouts at, like I said, several different locations, 16th Street. We also have Whitehall Street. We also have Mount Perrin Road. We also have Bolton Road, as well as Peachtree Street. And just at several different locations, these events were orchestrated. And it's important to note for the court that this behavior is illegal to promote drag racing. And this defendant participated in promotion of such drag racing. I will note for the court that in addition to his criminal history, he also has a driver's history that includes this type of conduct, which he has been previously convicted for. More specifically, on February 2nd of last year, he was convicted and pled guilty to racing. On April 3rd of last year, he was convicted of driving in a circular or zigzag motion. On April 3rd of last year, he was convicted of reckless driving, which led to him receiving a serious commercial violation by a person under 21. He was also convicted in 2022 of speeding, and his license is actually suspended. It was suspended on February 6th of 2020, and it is suspended all the way up until 2027. So at the time that these incidents occurred, Your Honor, his license was suspended, so he wasn't supposed to be driving or promoting any type of drag racing, which did pose a threat to the safety of our community, simply put, because it impeded the flow of traffic, it shut down traffic, and that was the intent of these drag racing events. Not only that, but it could have caused serious injury to other motorists on the road, as well as individuals in our community. I'd also like to note for the court that this defendant is only 21 years old. And in light of the fact that he's only 21 and his driving history is so terrible, And he is also alleged to have been orchestrating drag racing events here in our city and participating, encouraging others to participate in them. The state's recommendation for bond is going to be $11,000 surety bond, $1,000 on each count. The state did NOD one of the counts, so there should be a total of 11 counts. The state's also recommending no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while on bond, and that he do no driving while he's on bond because his license is suspended until 2027. Nothing further.
Two things I want to make clear on the record. Number one, which is a great summary of the state's case. Arrest is based on arrest warrants. So everything that the prosecution has just articulated, those are allegations. Those are not statement of facts. There is no conclusion. There is no factual conclusion that Mr. Rodriguez has committed these horrendous acts. It's just that simply it's alleged he's being charged with these offenses and he is presumed innocent of these charges until the case goes to trial and the state proves these charges beyond reasonable doubt, first of all. And second of all, I want to also make it very clear that nowhere in the warrants does it indicate that Mr. Rodriguez actively participated in any alleged acts of racing or laying drag. The allegations is simply that he seems to be the brains behind this alleged exhibitions at different locations. So I just want to be sure of that. The warrants do not tell me anything else. I can only assume that the arresting officers or the charging officers have articulated all their information to the magistrate who signed off on these warrants. So based on that information, Mr. Trejo, what is your Mr. Judd, what is your recommendation for Mr. Rodriguez?
Your Honor, we would be asking for a signature bond on Mr. Rodriguez. Reasons being, first off, Your Honor, he is only 21 years old. He is a Georgia native, in fact, a Atlanta Metro native. He graduated from Elizabeth Andrews High School in DeKalb County. He's looking at going to Gwinnett Tech for being a professional in the electrician field.
I'm sorry, being a what?
Going into being an electrician, Your Honor.
Oh, electrician, okay.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Your Honor, he doesn't have any felony convictions, no violent crimes, sexual crimes. It's my understanding that he doesn't have any failure to appears. Your Honor, he does do regular volunteer work. He coaches with the 6th grade basketball team in Druid Hills. Most of his family is in Georgia. His mother, his uncle, his brothers, his sisters, his 2 nephews, his father. Beyond that, Your Honor, he did turn himself in as soon as he found out about the warrants. You know, no one was forced to come out after him and get him. He realized that he was wanted and did the right thing. Without going too far into the facts of the case, Your Honor, he did not believe he was organizing any sort of illegal drag racing or anything of that nature. His friends simply asked him to put together a list as far as a ride along. And I don't quite understand the purpose behind it, but I do know that it is common in car communities. A lot of times people will get together, they'll get in their nice cars and just drive together, sometimes talk over the, a CB radio or something of that nature. And that is what Mr. Rodriguez believed that he was putting together. It's my understanding that he had no involvement in any of the racing or laying drag, that he wasn't even there during the occurrence of this. And furthermore, Your Honor, I would like to bring up that I'm not sure that there's any relevance to his license suspension or driving history, since he was not actively involved with any of the alleged racing or doing donuts. So we would ask that he be considered for a signature bond.
Each count is going to be $5,000. That's going to be a $55,000 signature bond through pretrial services. Mr. Rodriguez will report to pretrial once a month. He is not to operate any motor vehicle, none, unless he has a valid driver's license, proper registration, and adequate insurance. If he gets arrested again for anything else, Mr. Rodriguez, not certain what you were planning to do, some kind of glorified carpool, but whatever you are attempting to create, it's getting you in trouble.
It was, well, because of my...
No. I'm not having a conversation with you. I'm explaining to you that whatever legitimate cause you may have been allegedly trying to create, well, look where you are now. And it's not a pretty picture. $55,000 signature bond through pretrial means that if you violate any of the conditions of the bond, or if you get arrested again for anything else, as simple as jaywalking, spitting on a sidewalk, make sure when you come back to jail, you bring $55,000 with you. Do you understand?
Yes,
If
Your
you don't, you can always speak to Mr. Judd, or you can always retain an attorney and speak to them.
I understand, Your Honor.
And if your license is currently suspended, highly recommend that you do not go about carpool. We have legitimate sources, which would be your family members, Uber or Lyft, or anything to that effect.
Yes, Your Honor.
But perhaps the way you were planning, look where it landed you. So, all right, we'll see him at the next court date, 55,000 signature bond through pretrial. Thank you.
All right, next case, position 5.
All right. Oh, okay. Lenora Hamilton White, hyphenated, a middle name Michelle, case number 23CR 001012E, is accused of reckless conduct involving an alleged use of a firearm and battery domestic violence. This incident apparently occurred on February 1st, 2023. Ms. Hamilton White, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is going to be Mr. Trejo. And yes, Mr. Howard?
First arrest, I think?
Right,
Yeah, first arrest.
thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Lewis? I'm like
Yes, Your
having
Honor.
the Zoom, okay.
Yes,
Yes.
Your Honor. So it's
Yeah, I've read the warrant, I've read the allegations, I've read the police investigation and so forth. Tell me what's your recommended bond on just the battery domestic violence first? With the sister, right?
yes, that's her sister.
Mhm.
So our recommendation for that is a $3,000 surety bond. The state would like to put some facts on the record, however. Let's see. So there was a dispute between Ms. Hamilton and her sister, Aprie Hamilton, spelled A-P-R-I-E. The dispute turned physical, and then the defendant pulled out her gun, cocked it back, and fired one shot. The defendant then began hitting the victim in the head several times with the gun. Ms. Hamilton, the sister, stated that the defendant cocked the gun a second time and another shot was fired. The victim, it is to note, was not hit either time with those fired shots. Your
So
Honor.
I'm so sorry. If she discharged the weapon purposely, why is it a misdemeanor?
We did recommend it to go up to felony division, but they declined the charge.
All right.
Yes, Your Honor.
So what's the recommendation?
The recommendation is a $13,000 surety bond. That's $10,000 for the reckless conduct for firing the weapon and the $3,000 for the battery family violence.
Okay. Mr. Trejo?
Yes, Your Honor. As Your Honor pointed out, I would say that without getting too much into the facts of this case, the fact that it was not picked up or not charged as assault or something else related to the firearm is telling about the circumstances of this case, and I'll leave the facts at that. My client is currently a student at Georgia Tech. She's in her second year. She's studying marine biology. She's lived in the Atlanta area her entire life. Prior to that, she was enrolled in and successfully completed a JROTC program for 4 years. So it does seem that she's engaged with the community. She's civic minded. And again, the fact that she's a second year biology student at Georgia Tech means that she has a future ahead of her, Your Honor. She also, in my conversation, my interview with her prior to today, she indicated that she and her sister do not live together. So in terms of if any conditions being placed on her, we don't think a stay away order would be any issue. However, Your Honor, we would ask, given her current living situation, that she do be granted a signature bond, or at least be considered for a signature bond, and that any other condition be applied to her case.
All right. I just want to clarify, so I'm so sorry, but I want to be very sure that I understand why this case is with state court. In reading the warrants and reading the reports from the alleged victim to the police, it appears that there was allegedly a weapon was produced, apparently by the defendant, and a chamber. It doesn't say the gun was discharged, just that a round was discharged from the chamber. And after as further struggles ensued, the firearm was discharged, but it doesn't say whether it was deliberate. I'm not sure. That's where the warrant is as perplexing as the events of this alleged offense. But one thing is definitely of great concern is that apparently a very intelligent young woman decided to introduce a firearm in a domestic violence situation, allegedly. On the reckless conduct, it's going to be a $3,500 surety bond. On the battery domestic violence, it's going to be a $5,000 signature bond through pretrial. Total bond is $8,500. It is a split bond. She is to have no further contact with Apri Hamilton. She's to stay away from 532 Cleveland Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. She's not allowed to possess any weapons or any firearms. Any firearms that is possessed by Ms. Hamilton White must be surrendered to the local police authorities like APD. She's to report to pretrial once a month. Due to the nature of the incident, she is, like I said, to have no contact with Apri Hamilton. So what that means, Ms. Hamilton White, is that you are to stay 200 yards away from your sister. If your sister encourages you to have contact with her, you need to go back to court and amend the no further contact to no further violent contact before you respond to any kind of communication with the victim. Your next court date is going to be March 7th. If you make bond, then your court date will be further notice.
I have one question. So you say I have to surrender my gun to APD?
You have to relinquish possession of any and all firearms.
What does that mean? Like,
that means you surrender possession, you give it up, and they destroy it.
okay.
No more guns. And just to be, if this case goes to trial and you are convicted of a domestic violence matter, you're not allowed to own a firearm anyways.
Okay.
So I would caution you to comply with the conditions and work with your attorney to resolve this matter. Thank you.
Okay.
That's per judge.
Yes, on the battery. The other one's the surety bond.
Your Honor, if I may sound with the courtroom 2 and 3, Shanika Wilkerson, we're still missing the plea paperwork on that case.
Okay.
So if courtroom 2 or 3 has that plea paperwork, please send it to Ms. Bickerstaff. Thank you.
Thank you. Courtroom 2, who do we have?
Position 4, Hall.
This is Demetric Hall, case number 23 CR 001015G. Mr. Hall has been accused of criminal trespass and causing damage to the apartment from February 21st, 2023. Mr. Hall, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is going to be Mr. Trejo. Mr. Toussaint, I understand that Mr. Hall has 11 cycles. Any prior criminal trespass convictions?
2018 trespass conviction, 2015 failure to appeal.
All right, thank you. Ms. Lewis, what's your bond recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. This incident occurred at 3136 MLK Drive, apartment C7 on February 21st. Officers responded to this trespass call and spoke with Kolander Willis. Her name is spelled Kolander. Ms. Willis, who's in the process of moving out her apartment, came back once more to get some more items and noticed that the window of her, one of the bedrooms was shattered. She called her fiance to come over to help her go inside. And when they entered the apartment, they saw Mr. Hall sleeping on an air mattress in one of the bedrooms. When the officers arrived, they found Mr. Hall standing inside the bedroom closet. The state is recommending a $1,000 surety bond. That's $500 on each count. No alcohol, drugs, or weapons, and to stay away from the address, which is 3136 MLK Drive, Southwest, apartment C7. Nothing further, Your Honor.
So the allegation is he allegedly moved into an apartment that was where the tenants were already in the process of moving out or have almost completely moved out, correct?
Correct. Allegedly broke a window to enter the property.
Right, and we have no idea how long he's been there, do we know? Allegedly?
Not from the facts I have so far, no, Your Honor.
Okay. On the criminal trespass, it's going to be $2,500. The damage to property is $2,500. The bond is set at $5,000. It's a signature bond through pretrial services to stay away from the entire apartment complex at 3136 MLK Junior Drive in Southwest Atlanta. Mr. Hall, I'm granting you a signature bond based on these circumstances, but if you return to that entire apartment complex, well, bring $5,000 with you the next time. Understood? And you are to provide us with a current I'm sorry, Mr. Trejo, is your client residentially challenged?
No, Your Honor.
All right, so we'll need a current address and phone number and email if he has it. And if you can send it to Miss Grace, that would be helpful.
Understood, Your Honor.
And Mr. Hall, anytime you change your address, the first folks who need to find out is the clerk's office at 160 Prior Street.
Okay.
All right, and if you don't show up in court, you will be arrested on a bench warrant. So you decide how you'd like to come back to court. Thank you.
Okay.
Your Honor, was the signature bond pre-trial or through the jail?
Pre-trial. It's
Thank you.
pre-trial. He's going to have to report to pre-trial once a month.
Thank you.
Next case, position 7.
This is Vashetta Robinson, accused of obstruction of a law enforcement officer, 23 CR 001-025G. So the obstruction charge stems from an August 3rd, 2021 incident. So Ms. Vashetta, you've been accused of this charge. You have been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Trejo. And Mr. Tucson, is there a open pending hold in DeKalb County right now?
I'm not sure. She
Okay.
got 7 total: battery, DV, disorderly conduct conviction, 2009 probation violation.
Ms. Campbell, I'm just a little confused. This incident happened in August of 2021. I just need to know whether she's got an open pending hold in DeKalb.
I did not see an open pending hold out of DeKalb. At the time, she had a open warrant out of DeKalb back in 2021.
Okay, but she doesn't have a hold right now, does she?
Not to my knowledge, Your Honor.
Okay.
She does. I just looked in the jail system. She's on a hold for no bond from a foreign county, and that county is DeKalb County.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Campbell, I'm familiar with the warrant. What's the bond recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. The state's recommendation for bond is a $3,000 signature bond through pretrial services, as well as no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while on bond, and a stay away from the incident location, which is 585 Marina Street, apartment number 2 in Hapeville. And just very briefly, the facts are that on the date of August 3rd, 2021, at approximately 3:30 in the morning, officers were dispatched to that location for a criminal trespass call. And the caller did indicate that this defendant was behaving erratically in the home, and he wanted her criminally trespassed out of the home. Upon arrival, they did learn that she was wanted out of DeKalb County for probation violation. And at that time, they attempted to take her into custody, and she did run across the street from the officer, and the officer did have to pursue her across the street. Nothing further from the state this time.
Mr. Trejo, the bond's going to be 2,000 signature bond through the jail and with a release only to DeKalb County authorities.
Understood, Your Honor.
Thank you. And Ms. Grace, please be sure that the release is only to the DeKalb County hold.
I'm doing it right.
Ms. Robinson, this case from 2021 is now an open active case against you. I've given you a signature bond through the jail. However, you cannot be discharged on your own from Fulton County. DeKalb County will have to come pick you up and address whatever hold they have on you. But in the future, you would have to keep up with this case so that when we send you notice, to make sure that you show up in court. So it's very important that you update us with any changes of your address so that we can reach you correctly. Thank you.
This is
Courtroom 2, who do we have?
position 6, Mr. Hewley. This is a plea.
This is LaFrancia Hewley, 23 CR 0011014E, accused of criminal trespass on February 21st, 2023. Mr. Hewley, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. Trejo. I understand that Mr. Hewley has at least 17 cycles with an open felony case. Ms. Campbell, I'm familiar with the incident at Lakewood Avenue. What's your bond recommendation? Oh, I'm sorry, you're on mute.
It's my understanding that this is a pre-negotiated plea. We did receive plea paperwork and send it over.
Oh, this is a plea. All right.
That's right, Your Honor. And for purposes of the plea, our office does not represent folks while they're entering a plea. However, just in the course of interviewing Mr. Hewley, I did speak to him about what the offer entails, and I did notify him of his rights and that we wouldn't be representing him, but that the state would help him fill out that paperwork and basically the process of entering that plea before you today.
And Ms. Grace, have you received a copy of the completed paperwork, including the waiver of counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. This is State versus LaFrancia Hewley, case number 23 CR 0011014E. Mr. Hewley has been accused of criminal trespass at 1959 Lakewood Avenue in Southeast Atlanta. In Fulton County, Georgia, allegedly on February 21st, 2023. Mr. Hewley, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and anything you choose to say can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, but understand that the Public Defender's Office is not going to represent you if you choose to enter a plea of guilty to the charge of criminal trespass. Is that your understanding, Mr. Hewley?
Yes. Yes.
And do you want legal representation?
Yes.
And how do you plan to obtain it?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Do you understand the question I just asked you?
Repeat it.
The Public Defender's Office will not represent you if you choose to go against their recommendation and enter a guilty plea. So if you want to have an attorney, you would need to wait another day before you confer with the Public Defender's Office and they can investigate your case. So if you want a public defense attorney, you will have to delay the plea until they've investigated the case.
No. No.
I'm sorry?
No.
No what?
No. So is that attorney? No. No attorney.
Your Honor, can we go into a breakout on this? I have some concerns.
No attorney.
All right. Officer Norris, is Officer Norris in courtroom 2?
No. Just long, yeah.
Yes, he's here, Judge.
I think I'm gonna have to take this case at the end.
We're towards the end. It's his case, and then Mr. Terriot is another plea, position 9.
Position 9. Let me evaluate position 9.
All right, we can move on to position 10, courtroom 3.
Okay. Oh, position 10, okay, right. This is Brenda Wallace, charged with theft by shoplifting in 23 CR 001-016C. Ms. Wallace, your case is a shoplifting charge from February 15, 2023. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is it Mr. Trejo, Mr. Judd? Okay.
Judd.
It's
Mr.
me,
Judd,
Your Honor.
how are we proceeding in this case? Are we moving on to a bond argument?
Yes, Your Honor, we'll be
Okay.
arguing bond.
All right. So in this particular case, 23 CR 1016C, Ms. Wallace has been accused of theft by shoplifting. I understand she has 80 cycles with
Correct.
a prior theft by shoplifting. Was it a conviction or an arrest on
Show an
February 15th?
arrest.
Okay. Is
But
that
she got a lot of shopping.
all right? And does she have an excess of 3 shoplifting convictions in her record?
I'm not sure. I have to count them unless the state already knows.
Yes, Your Honor, this would actually be the third shoplifting conviction.
No, what I'm asking is, does she have at least 3 prior theft by shoplifting convictions?
No, Your Honor, she has 2.
She has 2, okay. So if the case goes to trial and the state proves this charge against her beyond a reasonable doubt, this would be her 3rd conviction for theft by shoplifting?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, Ms. Wallace, the reason why I'm asking these questions is because under the law, if you have 3 shoplifting convictions on your record, any subsequent arrest will automatically be a felony charge. Do you understand? Okay, all right. So Ms. Bickerstaff, what's your recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. The bond has already been set to $1,000 surety bond. We're going to keep it there, and we're asking that the defendant stay away from 844 Cleveland Avenue, East Point, the Walmart. Your Honor, and just for the record, really quickly, officers arrived to the scene and where the defendant was putting watches, a bed sheet, men's socks, lip gloss, and makeup into a pink bag. It was all totaling $126.05 without paying for them. And that is why we are asking for our bond recommendation.
All right. Mr. Judd?
Your Honor, we would be asking for a signature bond today. The reason being that Ms. Wallace is 62 years old. She currently does not have any form of income. She is not receiving Social Security or disability or retirements or anything along those lines, Your Honor. She has lived at a stable address at 343 Roy Street for about 3 years. She's lived in Georgia for the past 23, showing strong ties to the community. She also has family here in the way of her sister. Your Honor, she doesn't have anyone, unfortunately, that would be able to help her make a bond. So, and any sort of good bond or surety bond would be the equivalent of a jail sentence to her.
Bond is set at $1,000 surety. Stay away from Walmart at 844 Cleveland Avenue. The next court date is March 7th.
Can I get that bond amount again, Judge?
1,000 surety bond. She doesn't qualify for a signature bond. She has is very significant criminal background, as well as a recent arrest for shoplifting on February 11th. Thank you.
All right, next case is position 13.
Brianna Willingham, are we proceeding with a bond hearing in this one as well?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Brianna Willingham is 23 CR 001-017B. She has been accused of the following offenses: driving under the influence of alcohol less safe, promotion or organization of or exhibition of illegal drag racing, and driving with defective or no headlights from February 22nd, 2023. Ms. Willingham, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Judd. Any priors, Mr. Howard?
It's a third arrest. She was arrested last year for DUI. That's open in Cobb. 2016 hit and run, suspended license. The suspended license was dismissed.
All right. And where was the hit and run?
I think Cobb, I'm not sure. I forgot.
Right.
I didn't make a note of it.
Miss Bickerstaff, do you have information of her driving record?
Yes, just 1 second, Your Honor. Just give me 1 second to pull it back up. Yes, Your Honor. So the hit and run was out of Cobb County.
Okay. And what about the DUI? Are there any other driving infractions besides these two?
Yes, she currently has a 2022 DUI out of Cobb County as well involving alcohol. That is open.
All right, thank you. And what's your bond recommendation for this one?
Yes, Your Honor. So the bond has already been set for a $3,000 surety bond, $2,000 for the DUI, and $1,000 for the defective headlights. We're also asking for the defendant not to drive and no alcohol, drugs, or weapons. And just really quickly for the record, Your Honor, this incident happened on February 22nd. At 129 Marietta Highway in Roswell, where our officer observed the defendant driving a Jeep without any headlights on Highway 9. And when the officer stopped the defendant, she did in fact admit to drinking. And so the officer conducted a field sobriety test, whereafter the defendant was taken into custody. And that's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Judd?
Yes, Your Honor. We would be asking for a signature bond on Miss Willingham. Before we get to the argument, I do want to point out that Miss Willingham does have a private attorney already who was unable to make it for today's purposes. So I am representing her for the purposes of bond, but will not be going forward in her case. And Your Honor, Miss Willingham is 28 years old. She's lived in Georgia for the past 15 years. She has a lot of family here in Georgia. Her mother, her father, her stepfather, sisters, step siblings. She has no felonies, no violent crimes, no sexual crimes. And other than the other DUI, which is still an open charge and is not a conviction, no other drinking related charges, no open containers or drunken disorderly or anything along those lines, Your Honor. She also does regularly do volunteer work. She signs up citizens in the metro Atlanta area for healthcare. She has been doing that for the past 2 years, just out of the goodness of her heart. And it's my understanding that she has no failure to appears, Your Honor. So we don't believe that she would be likely to miss court, and she does have strong ties to the community. Your Honor, we would be asking for a signature bond for Miss Willingham for those reasons.
On the promotion or organization of the illegal drag racing, similar to what Mr. Rodriguez had, that's going to be $1,000 signature bond through the jail. On the driving defective, no headlights, that's going to be $1,000 signature bond through the jail. On the DUI, that's going to be a $5,000 surety bond. The total bond is going to be $7,000 split bond. No driving, absolutely none, until she has a valid Class C driver's license. And even if the Department of Driver Services, if she files an appeal, I'm not going to accept a limited driving permit. So no driving at all. And once she gets a Class C driver's license reinstated or reestablished with DDS, then she can drive as long as she has a valid registration and proper insurance. Courtroom 3, I think Ms. Willingham wants to waive her right to remain silent. Ms. Willingham, if you choose to say anything, you could jeopardize your case and incriminate yourself unnecessarily. So,
And Your Honor, if I may, I think I may know what Miss Willingham wants to
yeah, go ahead.
bring up. I'm unaware of any paperwork that actually suggests that she has an exhibition or organization of racing.
Yes, Your Honor, I was about to interject on that as well. I've looked at the accusation, the calendar, and all of our materials. We never charged that charge.
Okay, so
Just
this was
DUI
a
and
mistake
defective
then?
headlights.
Okay. Miss Grace, am I misreading this? Is it on the calendar?
No, it's not. I was gonna come in also.
I have no idea why it's on my calendar, so it's my mistake then. But we're going to remove that charge. So it's the DUI and
Thank
just
you,
the
Your Honor.
driving. So the total bond is a $6,000 split bond. $5,000 on the second DUI in less than 24 months, and then $1,000 signature bond through the jail on driving defective headlights. Does that clear it up?
Thank
Yep.
you, Your Honor.
All right, and still no driving at all unless she has a valid Class C driver's license or a CDL and a valid insurance and registration. Limited permits are not going to be sufficient to authorize driving. Thank you. Oh, of course, and no alcohol consumption. Next court date is going to be March 7th. All right,
Judge Law, this is gonna be position 9, Mr. Terriot, he's doing a plea.
are we done with position 12, Shanika Wilkerson?
Judge, she on the way. Stand by, please.
Yes, and Your Honor, she did accept the state's plea agreement, the plea offer.
Okay. All right, Arma Theriot is accused of criminal trespass from February 21st, 2023. Mr. Theriot, your case number is 23 CR 001026B. Mr. Theriot, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say about the facts of your case, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one would be appointed to represent you. Who is representing Mr. Theriot?
He's taking a plea, Judge.
All right, Mr. Theriot, well, who was talking to him before they withdrew?
That was me, Your Honor, and I did discuss his trial rights and discussed the intricacies of the plea deal with him.
All right, Mr. Theriot, if you decide to waive your right to counsel, you need to understand that you will be representing yourself and that any decision you make, that you will be responsible for its impact upon your situation, on any other open cases you may have, as well as on your criminal record history. Are you willingly and voluntarily and knowingly waiving your right to counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and do you understand what is the nature of the charge brought against you?
Yeah, I understand.
What is the charge?
Criminal trespass, man.
Well, that's just the title of the charge. What's the charge that's been brought against you? What are you being accused of?
They said that's all they said. Criminal trespass. I was going on my way to my hotel room. Before I know I was being attacked by several officers, slammed to the ground, and then the cripple grabbed and choked. But I don't compute that when I was told after getting out the first time, you can ride the train and go where you need to go because you won't have any other way to get down. I don't have any money. And saying all I have is a bus pass in the train. I don't have Uber money, you know what I'm saying? I don't have bus money. If I don't catch the bus or the train, how am I gonna get around the city? They're gonna stream in one area of the city like that don't make any sense.
Okay, all right. And so you're being accused of what then?
He just told me criminal trespass.
All right. Mr. Jordan, I don't think this person understands the charge that's been brought against him. And I'm not comfortable taking a plea. So I'm going
He told me it was
to.
criminal trespass and I made my plea. Then.
Mr. Theriot, as the judge, I have the right to and the discretion to decide whether you want to enter a plea freely, willingly, and voluntarily. The mere fact that you don't even understand the charge against you already tells me that you're just simply pleading guilty to get out of jail.
No, I'm not, man. They told me the charge of criminal trespass. I admit the criminal trespassing, man, but I didn't really.
Why is it a criminal trespass if you're allowed on a model station?
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out now. I don't know.
Exactly. You don't know what your
I
charge.
do know my charge. You just told me criminal trespassing, man.
Officer, we're going to mute the screen. I'm not going to take the plea today. All right. Mr. Tucson, how many priors, please?
This is 9th arrest.
And does he have any open cases?
He got to open possession of drug-related objects in state court, on probation for ag battery in Superior Court.
Is that the 22 CR 005-855B?
That's the drug-related object.
All right, thank you. Ms. Campbell?
Yes.
What is your bond recommendation for Mr. Theriot?
Your Honor, I also want to supplement the history. He does have 2 prior convictions for criminal trespass, one from February 15th of this year. And that was actually before Your Honor.
Yes.
And he also has a 2022 conviction for criminal trespass here in Fulton County, where he was ordered to stay away from the MARTA Garnett station. And the case that Your Honor handled back on February the 15th, it was the MARTA station located at 641 West Peachtree Street. And so just briefly, the facts are that on the date of February 21st of this year at 2424 Piedmont Road, which is the Lindbergh MARTA station, at 7:24 in the morning, this defendant was inside a MARTA train car. He had been previously issued a criminal trespass warning, or really suspension, from MARTA officials, and it was active beginning February 2nd of this year, and it is active all the way until February 3rd of 2024. So it's a 1-year long MARTA suspension. And in light of this, the prior history involving this same type of conduct, the state's recommendation for bond is a $1,500 surety bond and a stay away from all the MARTA locations, which Your Honor actually already ordered him to stay away from all MARTA locations on February 15th of this year. The state's also recommending no alcohol, drugs, or weapons while on bond. Nothing further.
Thank you. Mr. Judd?
Your Honor, since the only thing that I had gone over with Mr. Theriot was the plea offer and his charges, I wouldn't be able to make any argument as to bond.
All right. I'll be glad to put you in a breakout, or you can confer with him by calling the jail. The number there is 22392.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Okay.
Hey,
I'm going to go ahead and set bond once I hear from Mr. Judd. So
I don't have any buying money, man.
all right. Do we have Mr. Theriot? Your attorney, Mr. Judd, is going to call the jail. I would highly recommend you have a quiet, amicable conversation with him and do not yell at him. He's your attorney. Thank you. Do we have any other cases in courtroom 2 to address?
Yes, Judge, it's gonna be Mr. Hewley. He's still taking a plea.
I don't want y'all pulling these type of fire. You don't hear about it, man. You don't.
Mr. Healy?
This is Mr. Hewley.
Put me in, pick something in.
All right. Okay. Mr.
Pick up the phone.
Just one second. Officer, is Mr. Theriot being disruptive?
Yes, he is, Judge.
You can remove him. Bond is set at $2,000 surety bond.
Thank you.
Address any amendment. Okay. Stay away from all MARTA property. Thank you. His next court date is March 7th. All right, before I get back to courtroom 2, courtroom 3, who do we have?
Number 12, Wilkerson.
This is Shanika Wilkerson, case number 23 CR 001-013B. Ms. Wilkinson is charged with criminal trespass at a Family Dollar store on February 20th, 2023. Ms. Wilkerson, you have a right to remain silent. and anything you say, your statements can and will be used against you. You do have a right to an attorney and you're represented by Mr. Trejo. I also need to advise you that you do have a bench warrant, an open arrest warrant for failure to appear in court in your other open case 22 CR 007110B. This is going to be a bond matter, Mr. Trejo?
This is going to be Mr. Judd's case, Your Honor.
Judge, I'm so sorry. I just look at whoever's unmuted themselves, so I do apologize.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Judd is going to represent you. And Mr. Judd, same question. Is this going to be a bond matter?
No, Your Honor, Ms. Wilkerson is going pro se on a plea agreement. And at the court's convenience, I do have an announcement to make on Armad Theriot.
All right. I'm not going to accept a plea because she's got a bench warrant in another open case.
Okay, yes, Your Honor.
All right. So if you want to confer with her as well with regards to a bond, you're free to do so.
I will call and confer with her, Your Honor.
All right. It'll be two separate courtrooms. And what was the thing on Mr. Theriot? I'm sorry.
Yes, Your Honor. Well, briefly on Ms. Wilkerson, is there a number to reach that courtroom?
If not, Judge, I could put them in the breakout room. She's only one.
Yeah.
That works.
All right. Thank you. And I'm sorry, before you leave, Mr. Judd, what was your announcement on Theriot? I've already set the bond at 2,000 surety.
Yes, Your Honor.
He's becoming a safety issue in the courtroom.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Theriot did not wish to speak to me after calling me a few expletives, hung up the phone. I believe he's been escorted out.
Yeah.
So I believe he is deciding to go pro se, Your Honor.
All right. Well, we'll see next time, March 7th.
Yes, Your Honor.
Judge Law, we have position 6, Mr. Hewley. He still needs to take a plea.
All right. And Ms. Lewis, you can put Mr. Judd and courtroom 3 in the courtroom. We're going to go. Okay, Ms. Lewis is going to put, courtroom 3 and Mr. Judd in a courtroom, in a breakout. And Ms. Lewis, you need to put me in a separate breakout with Mr. Howard, Ms. Campbell, Ms. Falk. Anybody else wants to join us?
I'd like to be present, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Trejo and Ms. Bickerstaff as well. She might as well just join the party.
Okay, well, if y'all already see on your screen, if you highlight, you see, you can go back in the same breakout room that y'all were just in. Or do I need to close out that room and put everybody in another assignment?
Whichever is easiest for you.
Katrina. It's easy. If y'all just click on that button. I gotta put you in there, Mr. Howard. You're not in there.
Okay, all right.
Everybody's figuring it out. Who else need to go in there?
It's my case.
Okay, and I just need to put you in there since you.
Yep. And
are
me
not in
too,
the start.
please.
You already in there. You just gotta open it up. You're already in there.
Okay.
You just gotta re-enter the breakout room.
Okay. Will there be a pop-up like last time?
No, you gotta scroll down where it says more down there at your.
I see. Awesome.
There
Thank you so
go.
much. I appreciate it.
Uh-huh. I think that's everybody.
All right, I'm returning to the case with LaFrancia Hewley, 23 CR 001-014E. Mr. Hewley had initially decided to enter a plea, but upon a review of the case, upon a review of his criminal record history, as well as upon a review of just my personal conversation with him on Zoom right now, I don't believe him to be competent at the present time to enter a plea willingly, knowingly, and voluntarily with an understanding of what he would be giving up in order to enter a guilty plea. So in that regard, I'm exercising my authority to disregard his request for a plea at the present time and decline it. And his case will be reset to March 7th, 2023 SAP calendar with a $1,000 surety bond. Thank you. And to stay away from 1959 Lakewood Avenue in Southeast Atlanta. All right, Mr. Howard, you will start the process of possibly seeking an evaluation and see whether he would be better served on a different calendar. And as you know, the next available MH calendar will be March 9th, 2023. The sooner is done. So, unless you believe one further out. Francois, I believe that concludes the calendars, the cases in your courtroom.
Yes, ma'am, we are completed.
I'm just going to go over the calendar while I'm waiting on Mr. Judd to return from his breakout. All right, position 1, Sadiq Araya was $1,000 signature bond through the jail. And that was with attorney Tom Nagel. Position number 2 is a $12,000 signature bond through pretrial services, and it's further notice no driving at all until she has a valid driver's license. Position 3 is a $2,000 surety bond. Further notice to March 7, no driving unless I have a valid driver's license. Position 4, this was a $5,000 fixed signature bond through pretrial and further notice. Position 5 is a $8,500 split bond, reset to March 7th. Position 6, Hewley, is a reset to March 7 with a $1,000 surety bond. Stay away from Lakewood Avenue. Position 7 is a $2,000 signature bond through the jail with a release to DeKalb County authorities, to the DeKalb County hold only. Position 8 is a $55,000 signature bond through pretrial, further notice. Position 9, I believe Mr. Judd is talking to Mr. Theriot. Am I correct? Oh, he's back.
No, Your Honor, Mr. Theriot did not wish to speak to me.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah.
Yes, Your
So
Honor.
that was a $2,000 surety bond, reset to March 7th. Along with his other open case, which is 22 CR 005-855B. Position 10, Wallace, is a Brenda Wallace. Was this the one you were speaking to? I'm sorry, Mr. Judd. This was the one you were in the breakout with?
No, Your Honor, I was in the breakout room with Shanika Wilkerson.
Okay.
It's $1,000 good bond.
It was $1,000 surety bond. Yes, Your
Okay.
Honor.
Sorry, $1,000 surety bond, and that was reset to March 7th. Position 11, Waters, is a
10,000.
10,000. I don't know where my handwriting is just getting worse. It's a $10,000 surety bond. Oh, that's the one. It's reset to March 7th. And but I do have a note here that this case is going to be reset to the SAP along with the 21 CR case 1494F and the 21 CR case 1066F. 12 Wilkerson, what's your announcement on Shanika Wilkerson? Mr. Judd?
Your Honor, I was able to speak with Ms. Wilkerson, so if the court would allow me to argue bond on her case.
Okay. We'll get back to that. Position 13 is a $6,000 split bond reset to March 7th. Okay, Ms. Wilkerson, has she left the courtroom? Okay, this was the one where she had 23 cycles, criminal trespass at a Family Dollar, and she's got a FTA bench warrant as well. for 22 CR 007110B. Ms. Bickerstaff, what was your bond recommendation, or was that Ms. Campbell? You're on mute.
Sorry about that, Your Honor. Yeah, so we're asking for a $3,000 surety bond. And we're asking for the defendant to stay away from the 2324 Cascade Road, no alcohol, drugs, or weapons, Your Honor. And just briefly, this incident happened February the 20th, 2023. At the 2324 Cascade Road location of Family Dollar. When officers arrived and they spoke to a Mr. Graham, who advised that the defendant was at the location and she has been criminally trespassing there and disturbing guests at that location since June 2022. She's aware that she is not supposed to enter the premises, and yet she returns. Your Honor, the defendant has 2 failure to appears on her record, and that is why we're asking for our recommendation.
All right, thank you. Mr. Jett?
Your Honor, Ms. Wilkerson is 36 years old. She is currently homeless, Your Honor. She's lived in Georgia her entire life. Her whole family lives here in Atlanta. She is a university grad and has graduated from high school local to Metro Atlanta. She has no felonies on her record, as far as I'm aware. Your Honor, she has very few, if any, bond contacts. Thus, it would be near impossible for her to make any sort of surety bond. We would ask for her to be considered for a signature bond for those reasons.
I'm going to issue a $500 surety bond. She's already got a $1,000 surety bond on the FTA case. I'm going to reset both for March 7th. The other case, 22 CR 007110B, is a theft by shoplifting. I don't know if it's at the same location.
I'm sorry, Your Honor. What was that? The case number?
22 CR 007110B.
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Any other questions about the calendar? All right. I'm hearing cricket, so I guess I'll wish everyone a pleasant day, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.